and the phases that he went through. It was a series of transitions, life experiences, phases is what I've chosen to call them today. So I'm ministering from Elisha's life and ministry. I want to be a blessing to you today. All right. Thankful for the opportunity to minister this morning. And I say, well, why would you make that statement? Well, I probably could have been in bed sick with the flu. Or even something worse. Say, why? Because that's probably what at least 10 families from our congregation are plagued with today and have not made it out to the house of the Lord. But I'm here today and you're here today. We're here to worship the Lord in spirit and in truth. And regardless of those that are sick and laid aside, they need someone to minister to them. But those who are well also need to be fed. How many times in life that those that are sick or something wrong get all of the attention, and the ones that actually give them the attention have got no attention themselves? You're here this morning, hopefully well in body, but there are phases that you have gone through in life, and maybe yourself hasn't recognized it, or some others, but everybody needs to be ministered to at one time or another. You're here this morning. I want to minister to you and thank you for making the effort and being in the house of the Lord on this cold winter day. Amen. I want to take you on a journey with my message this morning. Hopefully just the introduction I gave to you there would gather some interest. And I have a 4-part message this morning. It follows a progression of thought. I want to talk about the Lord making himself known to Elijah. And then secondly, the Lord making Elijah's ministry known to the people. Thirdly, that point where he was experiencing some burnout, but then there came a fresh anointing to him and he was sent out again. And when he was sent out that final time, there were others that ministered to him. So there's 4 parts to that. I've got a 5th one that I want to add to it this morning. It's before I start out. I want to leave Elijah for a minute and go back and grab something from Gideon. All right, the life of Gideon. All right. So, Gideon, what about him? I call this portion of the message this morning, getting acquainted with God. This is before the Lord makes himself real and known to you, reveals that getting acquainted with God. Acquainted. How many has ever put out a fleece to the Lord? Anyone want to admit? How many's done that recently? Not a one. I don't condemn you for that. As a matter of fact, I commend you. Say why? Fleeces are the way of the immature to get the attention of God, or for God to give them some attention. Gideon was a grown man, but he wasn't that spiritual. The Lord had called him to deliver the Israelites from the Midianites, and he had all manner of excuses not to go. Oh, but if, why this? I'm the least of my family. Every argument you could put forth, he put forth not to do what God was calling him to do. Finally, when God got through to him that he really wanted him to use him to deliver Israel from the Midianites, then he said, Lord, if this is really you, was that my own mind speaking to me? If this is really you, I want you to prove yourself to me. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to put this fleece out on the ground, and if the dew comes and it's all over the ground but not on the fleece, then that's a good sign. Now, you look at that, well, that sounds kind of foolish, isn't it? I mean, the dew comes every morning, and it usually covers everything. We said, don't put it on the fleece, everything but the fleece. So he gets up in the morning, he sees dew everywhere, and there's none on the fleece. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting the fleece to be full of dew as well. Well, Lord, I need you to prove me again. Let's just do the opposite thing tomorrow morning. Lord, if this is really you that's calling me and I'm supposed to, how about putting the dew on the fleece and none on the ground? Does this sound familiar? It's not the way of the spiritual, it's the way of the immature, trying to get acquainted with God. God, are you really real? Lord, are you speaking to me? I want to know this is for you and it's not just my own mind. And so the Lord accommodated him in all that. And I'm a little amused at that this morning. Here's a great big God taking time to get involved with the small stuff. Just to prove that, yes, he is real. And it's what I call getting acquainted with God. Surely this morning I'm ministering to a group of people that you have already been acquainted with God, whether it's fleece or something else. How many this morning would know and confess, we know God's real? We know he's alive. If you weren't convinced of that, you wouldn't even be here this morning. So I think we've gone beyond that point of being acquainted with God, but let's move a little bit further into another phase where God makes himself real to you. There's a lot of people that never progress in their life to go to the next phase, so to speak. I'm reminded of Paul when he spoke to the young Hebrew Christians, second generation actually, in the book of Hebrews, and he said, you should have been meat and men and exercise yourself to teaching the Word of God, but when you had need of teaching, you should have been teaching others. What he was saying, you've known the Lord for such a period of time, you should have matured, but you still want the milk instead of the meat. So this morning we're here, we've been acquainted with God, but what about God making himself real to you? And this is where I start in 1 Kings chapter 17 this morning. Elijah. And, of course, it was a period of time when Israel was in captivity or not living like they ought to be. And there was a confrontation there with King Ahab. So Elijah meets King Ahab, and he has a little conversation with the king. Now, here's a man of God, spiritual man, already acquainted with the Lord. And here's a king, a spiritual guy and a political guy. And they're face to face. And first thing that Elijah says to Ahab, he's a little bit intimidated. You know, I'm just a farmer boy from the backside of the field, but I know God is real, and here you're the king of the nation. Maybe we shouldn't even be talking to one another. But he said, I want you to know something, Ahab. The Lord God of Israel, before whom I stand. Now, whether Ahab picked up on that or not, but Elijah was really given a foundation there. Before whom I stand. He was standing in front of Ahab. But he wasn't calling Ahab the Lord God of Israel. What he was saying there is, Ahab, I'm more aware of something right now than I am standing looking you eyeball to eyeball. He said, what is it? I recognize the presence of God. Now, whether I come face to face with you or not, I know God is alive and I know God is real, and he sent me to you with a message. So Ahab, the Lord God of Israel, before whom I stand, has given me a message to deliver to you. And I want to tell you something, Ahab, no rain in the next long while, or however long it takes for Israel to come to themselves and realize they need to call on God. Now, you and I know, because we read the story, it took 3.5 years for that to happen. And there was a lot of things that happened in that 3.5 years. But he also told Ahab, not by my word. Now, there's nobody that's that important that everything hinges on just themselves. I know there's another guy back in the Old Testament, Samuel. Samuel said of him that the Lord let none of his words fall to the ground. But everything came to pass at which he had said. Here's Elijah standing before Ahab, delivered the message, it's not going to rain except by my word. In other words, this is not the first time we're going to meet and talk eyeball to eyeball. And down the road, a little bit future, I'm going to have some more words for you, Ahab. And then they go on. And so what's happening? The Lord made himself real to Elijah. Amen. The word of the Lord came to him. He could stand upon the word of the Lord. He could give a message to the king and have every confidence that God of Israel was God. Now, hopefully we have come to that stage in our lives that we're more than acquainted with God. We know he's real. We know he's alive and well. And in our experience with the Lord, he has revealed himself to us, and we are aware of his presence. Now, if I were to tell you this morning, this happens in a lot of churches on Sunday morning, that it becomes commonplace. The man of God gets standing behind the pulpit like I am this morning and say, folks, the presence of the Lord is here. Duh. Right? Shouldn't even have to say that. Right? The presence of the Lord is here. Duh. Yeah, that's why we come into the house of God. We want to meet with the Lord, and His presence is here. And if you know the Scripture at all, He's everywhere present and He's nowhere absent. You didn't have to drive here to feel the presence of God. He's not localized in a certain place, but the man of God, being as spiritual he is, he said, the presence of the Lord is here. Well, it was before you got here, and it will be after you leave here. You say, why? Because His presence is everywhere. He's an omnipresent God. Everywhere present, nowhere's absent. Well, why did I have to even say that this morning? It's to make you aware. It's not that you don't know that God is everywhere. It's just that sometimes you get in that phase in your life, everything crowded, you don't recognize His presence right now. Matter of fact, sometimes when the heat gets turned up and things turn sour or heavy or you're getting some pain, where are you, God? He's where He's always been. He's everywhere. Right? He's not only in my heart, He's still there. You just have lost sight or you're not aware. Hopefully we're aware of God's presence. If you're aware of God's presence, that ought to make quite a difference in the way that you leave here this morning. You say, why? Oh, it's sweet to be visited by God 24/7, but also to feel that special touch in the presence of the Lord. Gathered together with people of like precious faith. So, we've gone beyond that of fleeces where we get acquainted with God. The Lord has made Himself real to us like He did to Elijah. He could stand before the king and give the king a message. He was certainly aware that God was present right here and now. Amen. Now, as I was reading this 1 Kings chapter 17 and on through to 19, there's at least 3 times in these 3 chapters where the word of the Lord, everybody say the word of the Lord. The word of the Lord comes to Elijah. The Lord is making Himself real to Elijah. It's not him putting out fleeces for the Lord to come and trying to prove Himself. It's the word of the Lord coming to him. So we find the first occasion of that in 1 Kings chapter 17 and verse 2. Tim, if you'd bring that up on the screen, please. The word of the Lord comes to Elijah. Now, we know the word of the Lord came to him for him to go and confront Ahab. But now the Lord has got a personal word for him. Here was the word of the Lord. The word of the Lord came unto Elijah, that's him, saying. Now, did I go further than that or just that one verse? Well, here's what the Lord said. I want you to pick up your belongings, pack your knapsack or whatever, and head to Cherith. Cherith, why would I want to go there? Well, you just gave a message to the king. It's not going to rain. Wasn't a real popular message. And when it gets dry around here, he's going to hunt for you and want to know where you are. He's going to blame everything on you. So I'm going to put you in hiding for a little bit. Oh, here's another phase, sort of like in his ministry. The word of the Lord comes to him and says, I want you to go to Cherith. And so he goes to Cherith, and he's sitting beside the brook. And that's important. You say, why? Because he's got lots to drink when it's dry everywhere else. And the Lord miraculously provided for him, bringing him flesh and bread twice a day via a raven. Now, I don't know, some of you are pretty fussy when it comes to eating. If a raven brought you some lunch, you'd say, yuck, I don't want it. Especially if you knew he picked it up off the road. That's roadkill. Right, but here comes a raven with some flesh for you morning and night, a little bread to go along with it, and you can drink of the brook. He's being sustained there by the brook. This is a place where the word of the Lord had separated him from a season. He's all by himself, but the presence of the Lord is being really real to him. He's showing himself to me alive, real, infallible, miraculous miracles happening here. Yeah, a raven just come by and give me something to eat. Has that ever happened to anybody? No. You know why? A raven is a ravenous, flesh-eating bird, and when he gets a piece of flesh between his beak, you ain't going to get a lick of it. But just as the Lord commanded him to go down to the brook Cherith, he commanded that raven, you go and give that man of God something to eat. And the raven squawked, I want this for myself. But at the command of God, the raven brings him flesh and bread morning and evening, and he's drinking of the brook. Oh, a phase in Elijah's life where the Lord is really being real to him. Nobody else around. Now, I've enjoyed some quiet times in my office here at the church or where the Lord has really poured his blessings upon me or made himself real to me in the word of the Lord, whatever. Those are blessed times. Right? But it's great to be sustained by the Lord, but he doesn't bless you just for your own spiritual benefit. He usually blesses you because someone else needs blessed. He pours into you so you can pour into somebody else. But how are you going to do that at Cherith? You're beside the brook, nobody around, you're in hiding. Just a phase that he's going through, but God's making himself real to him. The word of the Lord came to him there, and it was like the command of the Lord, you go. And then the Lord commanded the raven, and so he wasn't sick. He just opened his bill and let it go. So he had something to eat morning and evening. But then, another phase in his life, the brook ran dry. Anybody had some dry times in their spiritual life? I hope you weren't the one that prophesied no rain. What happens when you suffer according to your own word? You know, usually you like to give the word and someone else suffered because of what you said and you're scot-free. But what happens when you have to eat your own pie? He comes out and said to Ahab, no rain. Now he's thirsty. Whew. I need a word from the Lord again now. I need the Lord to command something because I just pronounced a curse among the whole nation, and now I'm part of that curse. Lord, you're going to have to minister to me. Notice the commands of the Lord. First of all, when the Lord commanded, he went to a place he normally would not go. Second, a bird gave him lunch that normally he wouldn't give. And when I get to another phase, we're going to talk about a lady that feeds him before her own children. I mean, these are some things that's really important in some phases in his life. So, the Lord came to him a second time, the word of the Lord, and he commands him to leave Cherith and go to a place called Zarephath. And he told him, he said, when you get to Zarephath, I have commanded a widow woman to feed you there. So he commands Elijah to go to Cherith. He commands a raven to feed him. He commands him to leave Cherith to go to Zarephath. In Zarephath, he commands a widow woman to feed him. The commands of the Lord are important. And we need to recognize, and these are some phases that we go through in life. It's not just getting acquainted with the Lord. It's when he tells us or commands us to do something, we actually do it. We're moving from spiritual immaturity to being mature when we're able to hear the word of the Lord and obey his commands. So he goes to Zarephath. This is the second time the word of the Lord comes to him. He goes and he finds this widow woman that's supposed to sustain him, and she's gathering up sticks. She's getting ready to make a little fire and a cake and make something for her and her son and then die. That's all she's got left. It's a period of drought in Israel now because of that man of God that prophesied to the king and said there's not going to be any rain. We're experiencing drought here, and things are really bad I've only got enough to make one cake. Gather 2 sticks. Going to make the cake, and then we'll die. The word of the Lord comes to Elijah and says, you speak to that widow woman and tell her to make you a cake first. Now, I don't know about you. I have a little difficulty with the Lord here. If he were to tell me to tell that, to go to one of my saints and say, I want you to give to me first. So I don't think I have ever done that. It's usually the other way around. Say, well, I'm not willing to ask you to do something I haven't done or been willing to do myself. But here's a man of God asking this widow woman, you give me some dinner first. And the widow woman looks at him, but I only got enough for me and my boy. 1 meal, and that's it. And you want me to give that to you? You're crazy. Now, I can suffer myself, but my boy, he's going to have something to eat. And you want it? Well, that's all natural. That's well and good. But hear the word of the Lord. And here's what makes the difference. You've gone from being acquainted now to mature. Hear the word of the Lord. The word of the Lord by the mouth of Elijah again. Not to the king of the nation now, but to the poorest in the country. He says to that widow woman, if you'll obey the word of the Lord and make me a cake first, then afterwards you can go and make for you and your son. The Lord will provide. Woo! Here's the word of the Lord again coming to Elijah. The word of the Lord. You tell this widow woman if she'll make a cake that she will be provided for. That's quite different than saying, Lord, if you'll put the dew on the fleece, I'll know you're God. He's quite confident here now. The Lord made himself real to him. And he's saying, you obey the word of the Lord first, he'll make himself real to you. So that woman, she wasn't at the stage of getting acquainted with the Lord. She was poor. She was in there. She knew God. And here's the commandment of the word of the Lord. By the prophet, make me a cake first. So she does. And then she goes back to her cupboards. And there's more meal there. And as she's making that cake, oh, thank you, Lord. You've provided. I'm so glad that I obeyed the word of the Lord. You sustained me another time. And tomorrow she goes and she looks in the cupboard. There's some more meal, enough for today. And excuse me. And she makes another cake. And they eat again. And she goes the next day. And there's just enough for another cake. Oh, isn't that the way of the Lord? He sustains us on a daily basis. Now, there's an evil in this day. Sufficient to the day is the evil thereof. And you can go to your cupboards. There's enough supply there for 3 months if you don't go to the grocery store for another trip. And if it's not the cupboard or the pantry, it's the freezer. How many's got lots of provision for weeks? Not just another day. All right, but here, or back then, no freezers, no pantry, just enough for that. The Lord is making himself real and providing. The scripture says there that she and her boy and the man of God ate for many days. How was the many days? Until the rain came. 3 to 3.5 years of daily provision. The Lord making himself real every day. You know how the Lord makes himself real every day to you? Read the Word of God. That's his Word of God. That's how he speaks to you. Now, if you're not reading the Word every day, he's not going to speak to you every day. Matter of fact, I'd venture to say the Lord hasn't spoken to some here in a while. How do you know? Because you haven't read in the Word. He speaks to us through his Word. You're in the house of the Lord this morning. He's speaking to you through his word. All right. So the word of the Lord came to him that second time. The third time is going to be down on my third point when I get there. We'll mention it too. But he's beyond being acquainted here. He knows the word of the Lord. He's following the commands of the Lord. The widow woman's following the commands. She knows the word. They're being provided for on a daily basis. What's happening here? The Lord moved him on to another phase. He left Cherith. He's now in Zarephath. He's making his ministry known to others. You know, your ministry's not much good in the desert all by yourself. Now Elijah would have been content to dwell there, but the Lord moved him on. And so now the widow woman also knows that he's used of God. She had a few doubts. She's still eating every day, but you know something? Somewhere between then and when the rain came, her son got sick and died. She wondered if Elijah might have had something to do with that. And so she went to him and told him, my son died. Elijah took the lad, and next time we see the lad, he's bringing him to his mother again alive. I know my son died. You bring him back to me alive. And the chapter closes out verse 24 by saying this. Now by this, by what? The miracle that you had just performed. Not just in the cupboards, but now bring in the dead to life. Because of these, I know that you are a man of God, and the word in thy mouth is truth. What's happening here? The Lord moved him into a different phase of ministry to where others are benefiting from his relationship with the Lord. Wow. Hopefully we have progressed to that in our life. We're not just immature and it's all about me. We know what it is to hear the word of the Lord, obey the word of the Lord, and now our life is becoming a blessing to others. I wonder what happened. There's phases that's happening to him. He makes himself real to others. Now, the widow woman wasn't the only one that knew his ministry was real. He's got to meet up again with old Ahab. Ahab was the first to hear, no rain. But now he's wanting to meet Ahab again. Ahab knows that Elijah's in touch with God. You say, why? Because it came to pass what he said. How do you know the difference between a true prophet and a false one? It's easy. The true prophet, things come to pass that he says. How do you know the false one? What he says doesn't come to pass. Quite simple, isn't it? And so his word came to pass, and Ahab wanting to see him again. And he's a little intimidated, again, to see the king. He goes to Obadiah, another prophet. Obadiah is the one that has just hid some prophets in the cave, 50 and 50, 100 prophets there, and feeds them just bread and water. And he said, hey, you want to see Ahab? He said, look, if I go to Ahab, he's going to kill me, because I was the one that prophesied no rain, didn't rain, we're in drought, all this. Elijah says to Obadiah, look, if you're not going to go and tell Ahab I'm looking for him, I'm going to see him today, whether you are the forerunner or not. Finally, he meets up with Ahab for the second time, and Ahab has the first word, and it wasn't from the Lord. Have you had that happen in your ministry? The Lord has used you, blessed you. You know it's God, but someone else don't think it's worth 2 cents? Hallelujah. He comes to Ahab the second time, and Ahab speaks first. And it's words of accusation. It's words of put down. It's a downer. You're the one that's troubling Israel. You know what? The man of God at this point wasn't feeling insignificant and small and low and the scum of the earth when he's talking to the king. He didn't take none of that stuff off of the king. He said, no, sir, I'm not the one that's troubling Israel. It's you. He put it right back at him. He said, you're the one that's disobeying the commandment of the Lord. That's why there's no rain. I obeyed the commandment of the Lord. I came to you and told you. You didn't know anything about it. The Lord hid me beside a brook. The Lord caused me to minister to a widow lady. The Lord done all this. I still know God is real and he can do it. But you haven't even learned yet. We're somewhere in the midst of this 3-year journey. Ahab, I'm not the one that's troubling Israel. It's you. You know better than this. Wow. There comes that point in a person's life and ministry to where they have to take a stand. And sometimes that includes reproving and rebuking. Not a pleasant job. Not a pleasant job at all. But you have to know that God is real to do that. All right? I'm not taking that off of you, Ahab. God is real, and he's made himself known to me. Now, I've just rebuked you such, but just because of rebuke doesn't mean the Lord doesn't love you and that he won't send the rain again. Now, we're going to have a challenge here. Word of the Lord again. What's the challenge? Let's go to Mount Carmel and find out who's really God. Ahab, you're king of Israel. You should be leading the nation. You know the God of Israel, but you've turned to Baal. Now, we want to know who God really is. Let's go to Mount Carmel. And to Mount Carmel they go. And here's the man of God. He's there at Mount Carmel watching all the heathens do sacrifice and worship to their God, and he doesn't even have a sacrifice himself. But he made a bargain with them. You provide 2 sacrifices, one for me and one for you. You go ahead, you go first, and do all of your worship and praise and whatever your routine is, and call upon the name of your God. The God that answers by fire, let him be God. Now, Elijah could say that because he knew God answered by fire. Ahab was just up for the challenge. So they're up on Mount Carmel. They go through their contortions for a whole day, but at the time of the evening sacrifice, he said, it's my turn now. And the first thing he did was repaired the altar of the Lord. I mean repaired. There was a certain way the altar was supposed to be built. 12 stones, one for each tribe, laid in a certain order. It had come into disrepair, so he repairs the altar that was broken down. Second, he takes the sacrifice, he takes some wood and he lays it on top of the altar. And then he puts the sacrifice on top of the wood. And then before he calls upon his God, he does something very strange. He said, I want you to bring some water and pour it on the sacrifice. Has anybody had an experience of trying to light a fire with wet wood? You don't get it started with a match. You need a propane torch. Huh? And even then it's going to go out. So why? It's wet. Anything that opposes fire, it's water. Ernie and I know that. We're on the fire department. You get a fire, call a fire department. They'll put water on it to put it out. And he calls for water. What was significant about water? He said there wasn't going to be any water for 3.5 years. This was a double sacrifice. It wasn't just the animal laying on top of the altar. Where are we going to get that water you want on this sacrifice? They brought 12 barrels full of water. Now, usually when you get a barrel full of water, it's because there's a downspout on a roof and it's rained. You get water in a barrel. He said 12 barrels. Elijah, why are we doing this? Command of the Lord. Don't make sense. I know. Command of the Lord. Wow. That's really knowing the Lord's real, isn't it? When you do what he says and it doesn't seem to make sense. Now, hopefully you're not off your rocker either. All right, and tipped over the edge. Now he said, to make this a little more interesting, do it a second time. What? A second time? Yeah, this is a sacrifice. Bring some water. Find some water somewhere. Find all the opposition you can get a hold of and bring it and pour it on top of that sacrifice. And they did it the second time, and they said, how about a third time? And a third time they come with 12 barrels of water. Now the ground around the altar is saturated with water. There's a trench around the altar. It's full of water. Water everywhere, not a drop to drink. And then Elijah just backs up from the altar, and he's ready to go to the Lord in prayer. And he prays a very short prayer. Now, I'm not advocating short prayers today. This was a short one, but I'm sure there was many long ones, especially at Cherith in the wilderness. Huh? You know how to get a hold of God. It doesn't take a whole lot of words or hours of prayer. It can only take a few moments, but the few moments are backed up by a whole lot of prayers. 63 words in that. He says, Lord, would you do 3 things for me? Number 1, let this people know this wasn't me. It's not my idea. I've done this at your command. Number two, I want you to let this people know you're still God in Israel. I'm expecting you to light this on fire. Right? So I've done this command. You're still God. And number three, that you're the God that answers by fire. 63, I'm done praying. Bang, there comes the fire. It licked up the water. That was the last to be put on. It licked up the sacrifice, the second altar. It licked up the wood. It licked up the altar itself. Wow, the fire from God. And it accepted the. And the people said, ever said the people said? And it's repeated twice. Remember a couple of Sunday goes, I said when you see something happen twice in succession, it's there for a reason, there's a deeper meaning. The people said, the Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God. There was emphasis there. The Lord, He is God. The Lord's not only proven Himself to Elijah now people, the widow at Zarephath, Ahab, and now the whole nation recognizes that the Lord is with Elijah, and whatever he says is going to come to pass. He knows the God that answers by fire, and now the whole nation, because of his ministry, ought to know the real God answers by fire. Wow, so his ministry is becoming known to others. You know what happens after that great victory? It's not over yet. He says, now that the Lord has made Himself known and real to you, there's something that needs to be done here. She said, what's that? Take all the false prophets and all these images of Baal and get rid of them. And they did that. Get rid of all of the false gods and all that. And then he comes down off the mountain. He says, I hear the sound of abundance of rain. Now that came as a series here. He sends his servant out, go pray. Nothing. That happened 7 times. Now he says, I see a cloud with the size of a man's hand. He says, that's all I need to know. I know God's going to send forth the rain. Get home, and he outruns the king back to the city. Wow, that's like the Spirit of the Lord who caught up Philip from Azotus, wasn't it? I'll tell you, supernatural moving of the Spirit. He gets down in there. Rain. Going to be rain. Wasn't by my word. I prophesied, but it's coming again. The whole nation knows that Elijah knows God, is used of God, prophesies, and the Lord does what He tells Elijah. So yeah, there's going to be rain, and there was. Now, next phase. I marvel at this. I really do. When God uses you spectacular, you don't have to be the preacher behind the pulpit. You can be a pew in the saint and be used of God. I must warn you, when you are used of God, not everybody appreciates it. Most people will, but not everybody. You get used of God. Could be the person next to you, might be one in the pew behind or the one in front, somebody in the church, someone in the same organization. They're going to get jealous. And when they get jealous, they're going to say all manner of evil against you. Oh, yeah, he's a compromiser. Yeah, he's done this. Yes, he's done that. Not everybody's going to like it when you're used of God. Say, how do you know it? Just read on here. It's the next phase in his ministry. Ahab's got a wife. It's wicked Queen Jezebel. It was her god. She was a worshiper of Baal. And he just destroyed the prophets of Baal and my images. I don't like it. And she sends word to Elijah. I'm going to make your head like the heads of one of them prophets. In other words, I just give you a death threat. Not everybody likes it when the Lord's using you at supernatural, etc. There's some Jezebels around. I'm going to kill you. And the Lord moves Elijah into another dimension of ministry again. But this time he sends him back to the desert. Oh, if you've been to the desert once, do you mean I got to go twice? No, the second time he went to the desert of the wilderness, he went there on his own. He didn't listen for the command of God. He was letting his humanity show. This happens to real men of God. those that are used of God, there's still a human side to them. And every once in a while it shows. You know why he went to the wilderness the second time? Because the wicked queen Jezebel threatened my life, and I want to live. I'm running for my life. Where do I know how to find hiding in that? Because I've been there before. I'm going to the wilderness where she can't find me. And so into the wilderness he comes again. And he's there for a few days, and he's hungry. Yeah, he really is. But in his hunger and his desperation, he knows God is real. But now we see him under a juniper tree having one of the biggest pity parties in his whole life. And nobody there to enjoy it but himself. Lord, I've been so zealous for you. I've obeyed your commands. I did this and I did that. And the widow woman is alive, and so is her son, and old Ahab, and I've run just because of a woman that threatened my life. And I'm under this juniper tree, and I don't feel very good right now. There's nobody wanting to serve the Lord except me. And the Lord had to tell him, look, you've got it all wrong, Elijah. I still got 7,000 in Israel alone that haven't bowed a knee to Baal. But you're here in a Molly Grub story feeling sorry for yourself, saying nobody wants to serve the Lord, nobody wants to hear the word of the Lord, nobody. You're just having a great big pity party all by yourself. This often happens to people who are highly used of God. Their next phase is deep depression. It usually comes on the heels of it. And not that I've been depressed in my ministry, but there are times I've had highs and lows. So I've seen the Lord move in a service, and this person be touched by God and hadn't been touching God in years. Service, and man, didn't the Lord move? And I get over to the house and in my study. Well, you're really anointed when you pray. Yeah. But you know what? So-and-so was there. They're not coming back. It's because, did I say something wrong? Did I not frame it right? What's happened? This is the humanity showing. All right, used of God, but now not so sure. Second guessing yourself. And he's there under the juniper tree feeling sorry for himself, and the angel of the Lord comes to him again with the word of the Lord for a third time. And what's the word of the Lord? You know, the Lord cares about us in every stage that we're going through, every phase in life of our ministry, doesn't he? So even when we're having a pity party, he'll show up. I'm glad I'm not God. If you're having a pity party, I'd say, wait till it's over. Now that you've grown up, come talk to me. But here the Lord had a special liking for Elijah when he was having his own pity party there all alone under the juniper tree and telling a story, trying to convince God when God knew the truth in the beginning. And the angel brought a gift with him. And he said, got some angel food cake for you. And he eats the cake, and he goes in the strength of that cake for 40 days. Whew. I haven't had a cake like that all my life yet. 40. But you know what he did? Upon eating that cake, thank you. Let me go to bed. Yeah, he did. He ate that cake, and he would rather sleep than preach. You say, why? Because when he preaches, people are going to get mad. People are going to say things, and you're in that stage in your ministry where you're feeling burnt out. I don't want people to hate me. I like to be liked. And he's experiencing some burnout, and he's sitting there under the tree, and so he eats some angel food cake and decides to go back to bed and sleep again. The Lord cared enough about him, he comes to him again there in the wilderness, and after he had already fed him, and he feeds him a second time. He asked him a question. He said, what are you doing here, Elijah? Now there's an implication to that question. What are you doing here? It's like you shouldn't be here. As a parent, you ever ask that to your kids sometime? What are you doing here? You know, maybe they've got their hand in the cookie jar. What are you doing here? Or you don't belong here. what he's trying to reinforce to Elijah here is, you're in the wilderness, your ministry, or the way I could use it, you've already been proven to the people. I made myself real to you, and you're here wasting it all on yourself, feeling sorry for yourself when you could be so much more effective ministering to people. Now, I want to tell you something, Elijah, whether you like it or not. I'm going to send you out again with a fresh anointing. Wow. I got to leave this wilderness and preach again. Yep. Amen. Hear the word of the Lord. And I'll tell you what, when you've heard the word of the Lord, more is required of you than of others. And that's why sometimes you get to feeling the blues physically, and it's hard on you because you know what the spiritual realm is, you know what the carnal realm is, and sometimes the carnal realm feels so good. Just let me sleep rather than preach. No, sir. Get out there and be a benefit to some. Now, in this, I call it the last phase, the fourth phase of his ministry here. I love this part of it. It's where others minister to him. Not only the angel, the Lord teamed him up in ministry from this time on. He sent Elisha along with him. Who was Elisha? He was the man that did twice as many miracles in the end than Elijah did, but he started off his ministry by just pouring water on the hands of Elijah, that guy who was so discouraged. What was he trying to show him here? You can't do the work of the Lord all alone. You need help. How many try to work with the Lord and they're the Lone Ranger? You know, the Lord uses me. It's me, myself, and I. I did this, I did that, I did that. No, it doesn't depend upon you. It's everybody working together. Hallelujah. And the Lord proved that many times over in ministry. So when he sent out his disciples, he sent them out 2 by 2. When the Apostle Paul went into ministry, there was people that went with him to establish churches. Barnabas and Saul, right? 2 by 2. Woe to him that falleth when he's alone. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, I believe it's verse 10. Woe to him that is alone when he falls, for there's not another to help him up. What is he saying here? When you get discouraged, if you're all alone in the desert, you're going to die there. But the Lord is so gracious to send along somebody else to minister to you. He won't leave you there alone. And then that next part, you learn to work as a team. And when you're not feeling so well, you've got a team member that'll encourage you and lift you up and keep you going. Another phase in ministry. I'm so thankful for the work of the Lord, aren't you? I know what it is to be acquainted with the Lord. I know what it is to have the Lord make himself real to me. I know what it is for the Lord to use me to make him real to others. I know what it is to be discouraged in my humanity and hide under a juniper tree and feel sorry for myself. I know what it is to be refreshed in the Holy Ghost, and the Lord send refreshments and people to help. I can stand here this morning and testify to you. I've been through all those phases. And not just because I'm the man of God behind the pulpit. There's some of you in your Christian journey gone through them too. But the Lord is with us. How do you know that? Go back to the beginning again. Acquainted, aware. It's like a cycle, isn't it? If you doubt anywhere's long, just keep going. It'll come around. Amen. And so the Lord is with you. We just need to obey his word, continue on in ministry, and he will help us. In closing this morning, if you've recognized the word of the Lord to you today via pastor, I don't know what stage of the cycle or the phase of ministry that you may be in, but you're in one of those 4 or 5 phases. I want to tell you this morning, no matter where you are, God loves you. And he just wants to keep you moving along. Hallelujah. Keep you moving along. He still cares about us, doesn't he? He's still God. He's still real. And he will be with us 24/7. Hallelujah. Hope you enjoyed the word of the Lord this morning. What have phases in one's journey or in one's ministry? More than acquainted with God, he's made himself real to me. He's also made himself real to others through my ministry. Yeah, there's times my humanity showed I've been discouraged and I've been under the juniper tree, but he sent along the angel of the Lord with refreshments and angel food cake and encouraged me and sent me along. And this time he's brought others alongside of me to help and keep going. Wow. God's good, isn't he? Amen. Let's stand this morning.